Okay, so we're back. We've got our palette. And so what we're going to do to start with is I actually want to just kind of get the layout for where I'm going to put everything. So I'm going to start with my image transfer. You want to image transfer the size. I figured it out to be, it needs to be basically in the upper corner of your project. It is probably about 50% of the size of the actual 11 by 17 canvas. The image, actually I can tell you, the image size is actually 7 inches by 7.5 inches. So if you're sizing it accordingly, that's basically the size of the finished image. I'll have accurate sizes in the actual pattern packet for you. So what I want to do is I'm going to cut it out before I do anything as close to the edges as I can. The less paper that we have to take off when the time comes, the happier we'll be. So we're going to cut around the entire thing. And trust me, you'll want to get as much of this white area cut out as possible. When we start taking it out, the less paper that we have to work at peeling off, the less work we have to do, and the less cleanup we may have to do. So we're going to cut it out, like so. Just to give me a little bit of area. So there we go. So what we're going to do actually is I'm going to take this image, before we do any texture or anything like that, I want to kind of figure out where my image is going to go. And the reason for that is because of what I talked about before, is we don't want to put too much texture here where this is actually going to go. So I've got a little chalk pencil here, you know, any chalk pencil that you can have, and I'm just going to kind of go around, I just want a little kind of an area. Give me an idea, just sketch it in, nothing fancy. Just to sort of give me an idea for placement of where this image is going to go. Just a guide, to avoid putting too much texture in that area. So then what you're going to need is you're going to need a palette knife. Prefer this shape. This shape actually is better for spreading the texture around. I'm going to use Texture Crackle. I know we talked about using modeling paste or any other texture that you have. I just happen to have this and it's handy. I've got several different ones to choose from. So, and like I said, anything that creates a little bit of texture. I'm going to take a little bit out and I'm going to put it on my palette. And I just want to kind of blend it in a little bit. What it does is it actually just makes it just that little bit softer. And then I'm just going to have a little bit on my knife. We're not going to put a ton on the piece. And what I'm going to do is just kind of scrape. If you can see how I'm going to do that. I'm just going to kind of scrape very softly. Just a little hint of texture. We're not going to do like buttering the whole piece. We're not icing a cake. It's just a little bit to create just a touch of texture. Skipping around, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going a little bit of where my image is going to go, like into it a little bit, not too much. And just work it around. And as you can see, I'm only putting probably about that much on my knife. Where are you there? Close enough. So it's not a lot. Because like I said, we're not going to ice a cake. Very, very thin. Just sketchy, thin. Skip it along. And a little bit, not too much, like where. Just a little hint here and there. Because one thing to think about too is the canvas also has a little bit of texture to it. It's just I don't like flat plain backgrounds. I like my backgrounds to have just a little something going on. Get a little bit more. Blend it. And I see I am putting just a hint up in here, but it just almost just a little bit that's on my knife. Just a touch. You'll see when we actually base coat and paint over top that there's actually a lot more texture here than what you're going to see on your canvas. It's very quick, you know, there's no real science to the whole thing. It's just no rhyme or rhyme. It's like anything, you know, try to avoid patterns so it doesn't look like a little checkerboard or something. That's why I kind of go around, go back up here. Just random little bits here and there. Yeah, it's build up the muscles. See? So just a tiny bit. I don't know if you can actually see up close how much texture. There you go. This is not a lot of texture, just a little bit. Okay? So now what we're going to do is with that same bit, with our stencil, we're going to do a little bit with stencils, and we're actually going to do a little bit and add in some stamps just so you can see the difference between the two. This actually is a Lori Spelt stencil. I love Lori Spelt stencils. This is her, I love that woman, period. She's just amazing. Very talented. This is her BCS 265 Webs and Tangles. This one right here. Thank you, Lori, if you're watching this. Thank you so much. I love these stencils. And what you can do is, I never want anything like straight on. It's always kind of fun to have your stencils kind of hanging off the side a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're just going to come up here in this corner a little bit. Actually dead center, because her hat's up here. There's no point in putting anything here because her hat's going to be there. So I'm going to put a little bit here. So I'm just going to take a corner of the stencil, hold it down, and again with my texture, I'm just going to go over it. Not super heavy, it's fairly light. Always make sure you got enough. Okay. A little bit more out of my container. Hold it down. And again, it doesn't need to be perfect because it's just for the texture. It's not to actually create a major defined image. Okay, and then when you pull it up, keep one finger on the surface of the stencil and then pull up towards you, and that way you won't lift it. So you can see, I'm going to hold that up for you to see. See how cool is that? Just love it. Not very big, just a little bit. And I'm thinking, do a little something down here. Actually, I like this one. I'm going to put this one here this time. You see me way down there? Moving up. There we go. So I'm going to put the whole half of a bigger one down here this time. Make sure I got enough texture. So we're just going to do that. Just same thing. Put a quick layer of texture. And you know what? And if you screw up the lines, don't even worry about it because it actually adds to the texture. So if some slips under or your stencil moves, it's no big deal. If you do screw it up, it's easily fixed. Okay, so I'll pull that one up. Then again, I've got one side held down. I'm going to pull straight up. If you were to screw this up or feel that you had messed it up to any degree, get you that one there, is all you would have to do is just take your palette and just wipe it off with your knife, and then you could do it again. So and just kind of blend it in so it becomes a little bit of texture. If you've got stamps that I'm going to use, because I love my little Boo stamp. My Boo stamp is my favorite stamp. I don't know why. I bought it at like the 50-cent bin at Michael's one year, and for some reason I love my little Boo stamp. So we're going to show you how we're going to put a little Boo in here. I think he needs to be up here in the corner. Up here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to put a thicker layer, and I can do it up here because the image transfer is not going to be here. So when you want to put a stencil in, just remember that you want to do it where there is no image transfer is going to be. So put on a little bit thicker layer. That's a little bit thicker. Where is it? Down there. I'm going to take my stamp and I'm just going to put it in. I'm not even worried about being perfect. I'm going to put straight down, pull straight up, and voila. There it is. Check that out. Little Boo in there. It creates a little, added texture in there. First thing is, you want to wipe them off when you're done. Clean them good, because you don't want your stamps to get all gummed up. So you want to clean it good. I'm cleaning it really good. I will wash them when I'm done. Same as the palette knife. You don't want to leave your texture on there to get all gummed up and dry. So I'm going to go wash my tools. This is going to dry, and we'll be right back. And I give it maybe 20 minutes. That's about it. And let it dry. So it's time to go grab, I know it to be so, and I'm going to come back with it. Our most important thing that we need when we paint. So dry up, clean up, and we'll be right back. Okay, so we're back. It's dry. It's dry to the touch. It doesn't take long. If you didn't want to wait for it, you could hit it with a hair dryer, whatever it takes to dry it. Because it's such a thin coat, it's going to dry so quickly. Like I said, 20 minutes, a little sooner, a little less, depending on where you live, you know, your humidities and things like that. So we had to give it a chance. So now we're going to actually just throw a base coat of paint. And I'm just going to base coat it with Payne's Gray, just a dark blue. If you don't have Payne's Gray, it's an undercoat color really. We're going to dry brush over top. So deep midnight blue, Prussian blue, any of your dark blues, black if that's what you happen to have. So we're just going to throw one coat. We don't care what it looks like. Just one good thick coat on here. And you want to actually work it in to some of these little grooves and stuff because it is going to absorb. And you want to make sure that it gets into your little holes. Get a good coat on there. So we're going to base coat it. And get one good coat on here. Okay, so he's painted. We've actually just put one coat on. It's not perfect, and that's okay, because we are going to dry brush over top, like I said, different colors. All I did is wanted to make sure when I'm going around is that I actually did turn the piece the other way around. That way you can see if you're missing spots underneath your textures and that sort of thing. So that was done. I've covered all those up. And so now what you want to make sure you do actually is that you put it back up the right way. Let's give it a spin because we know our image transfer is going to go here. So if we end up upside down, well, you know, it'll just be upside down. So as I've said before, one of the most key ingredients to painting with me is, of course, and everybody who knows me, is my coffee. Very important. And yes, people, it is Tim Hortons, as it is always. So what we're going to do is we're going to dry brush this. And with dry brushing is you want to use a coarse brush. This is my Palmer. I love these Palmers. I get them from FM Dynasty. I'm fortunate to be one of the Dynasty artisans, so I do get to play with all these great toys. I like this. It's easy to hold on to. You just slap your paint on. It's nice and dry. If you don't have one of these, that's okay because there's several other options. Anything that you have, the dry stiff brush, scruffy old brush. This is one of my Artist Club brushes. I've played with this one for so many projects. It also, again, is a nice coarse hair. You can see how they're very stiff. So anything that you have like that, old stencil brush. And another trick, actually, I just learned, and I can thank Chris Boy for that, is you can actually even use your fan brush. And I think we will today, too. Just a little tickles over top just to see how that works because I love the way that it worked out for Chris when she did her project, and you know, I never thought of it. So thank you, Chris Hoy. That was a great little tip. So we're going to give that a go. And what I do is I use 3 different tones of blues because this is Payne's Gray, nice and dark. It's just a base. I'm going to build up the levels with 3 different tones. It's just something that I like to do. And so we're going to start with turquoise blue over top. So what we're going to do, the brush stays dry, by the way. Everything that we do has to have a dry brush. So we're going to start Indian turquoise. Oh, turquoise blue, sorry. Put some on our palette. Another key thing to have is, of course, our nasty old rag. Going to have that. So we're going to load the brush up with paint. And I'm not even going to be too concerned. This brush holds a lot of paint, but actually it still goes on all dry brushy. This actually is also good too if you don't have texture. You can paint your gesso on with this and get a really nice thick coating. So this brush has many uses. So I'm just going to load it up with my turquoise blue. Because it's a big brush, it's just going to pick up all that paint. I'm working it into the brush. I want it in there nice and deep. I don't want to see any globs of paint on here. So I'm working it in. Helps to give the brush color. I take my rag and I just touch it lightly just because I want to make sure that there's not a lot of like any big gobs of paint because I don't want gobs of paint on my project. And then what I'm going to do is I'm start very lightly from the corner, straight up and just crossing very lightly and just get little hints of color. It's like tickling the surface. And see where the texture was? See how that is? How cool is that? It just sort of starts to grab on top, which I think is really cool. Over the little boo letters that we did here. And there's really no rhyme or reason. I'm just not going to go back and forth. I want it to be kind of, you know, slip-slappy, little X motions, very light. I don't want it to pick up a lot of color, just a little bit of color. And actually I'm going to use quite a bit of paint. Oh, shake that one. Shake it back up again. Grabbed the wrong one, discovered I should be shaking all my paints. It's one thing I live where it's quite warm, and I've really noticed that with the new temperatures where I am since I moved, that my paints, everything dries quicker, my paints settle faster. I don't know what it has to do with, what is it, like your different levels, sea level or whatever. It's kind of interesting actually. So we're just going to throw a quick coat on here, back and forth. Let it grab here and there. And see how all that texture is all starting to pop out now? You start to pick up sort of where we've put the texture on. It's just a fun, you know. We're going to just finish that up. And the nice thing is because we're starting from dark to light and we're staying in the same tones, we don't need to clean our brush. I'm just going to take my old rag, scrub off most of it. Yes, I have more rags for painting than I do for cleaning, and that's kind of a sad thing, really. So I'm going to go to my next lighter color, which is my Indian turquoise, which I discovered has settled. Give it a good shake. Get that one out. Same thing on my palette. Load my brush back up with it again. And it's okay that it's got a little of the darker blue in it, because it's just going to keep getting lighter as we go anyway. Same thing, just take a little bit of the paint off and start again, very lightly. And see how it's all starting to pick up the new color just that little bit better? A little lighter here and there. It picks up the texture. It's all kind of fun. It's all in the wrist though. I'm finding that I just kind of let it go as a motion. It's almost like a crisscross, but it's, I don't know, it just keeps changing directions. I just try not to stay in the same direction. Throw a quick on there. And now you can see that the texture is really starting to come out now. If you're worried and you're starting to see that maybe your pattern is getting a little routine, like I don't like this, it's getting a little bit too directional, I'm just going to go the other way. Just flip it around. Alright, so that's that color. If you did find, I didn't need to, but if you did find when you first base coated that you had some rough edges and stuff, you can lightly sand it a little bit with a bit of sandpaper just to take the little tips off. It's with this small of a finish, you don't really need to, but sometimes if you like to, you can. Like if you got thick on the spider web or something, just to knock it down a bit. Okay, so we'll go to the lighter color, get that on there. And you know, I play with it back and forth. If I find it gets too much of one color, you can just pick up a little of another color and go back over top. You can just keep layering it for that matter until you find something that you like. If you like it lighter, which I do, you can have a little bit more of a concentrate of the lighter color. Or if you prefer it darker and a little bit more sinister for your evil witchy self, you could have put a little bit more of the turquoise blue on and just had more of a turquoisey blue effect. I kind of go with the sort of the more grayed out, wishy-washy look. Okay, get a bit more of that on there. I love how that picks up all the texture. Not a lot of texture, just enough to create a little bit of fun for it. This is so much fun. I know you're having fun. How could you not be having fun? So I do like that. I think I'll play. I'm going to add a little bit more of some other colors. I want to darken it up in a few little spots just to kind of play with it a little bit. We'll just see what happens when we add a little bit more of other colors to it. Who says we can't play with it, right? I think I want it a bit bluer up in here. Maybe where my witching hour is going to go, because I want the clock to kind of stand out a little bit more. On mine, yeah, it's about the same. I have it a little bit more lighter in the center here. Just my clock's going to go there and make it pop out a little bit more. I like that. Picks up a little bit more. You can press harder if you want that more of a, you know, a little bit more texture, a little bit more color going on. There's no right or wrong. It's however you want it to be. You know, and if you get it and it's way too light, just throw a wash over top of your Payne's gray. You could just throw a wash over top. You could dry brush a little over top. There's this any number of things you can do. Just keep playing with it till you're happy with it. You could pick up a little bit more of the turquoise blue. Like, you remember your witch is going to be over here, so anything that happens over there is really not going to be all that important. It's just wherever you've got color and you want to see it. Yeah, a bit more, liking a bit more of the blue. I do like that. And I put a little bit more blue back here too. In both colors, the turquoise blue and the Indian turquoise. The spa blue, Indian turquoise. This was the turquoise blue. Too many turquoises, hey? They're just pretty colors. The odd hair does fall out, but not that bad. They're big, you can pick them up. Oh yeah, see, I like that. Don't have to like it, I like it. A little bit more in the center. I just think it'll make the lettering stand out just a little bit better. And that's the thing, is you just keep layering it until you're happy with it. It is witchy. It's spooky. Smoky maybe, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, just keep playing with the color. I think I'll turn it a little bit, just get this going in a little bit different direction. I'm happy with that. Get a little bit lighter on the bottom here. Okay, I think that works for me. Nice and simple. Lots of fun playing. Okay, so that brush, I'll wash it like I normally wash all my brushes. So I'm going to put it in my water for now. Doesn't really need any time to, it dries. We can give it a couple minutes to dry it, you know, whichever. That's where we can, you know, go into our coffee. Very important stuff. Okay, so we're going to actually do this part. We're going to get the image transfer on, and the reason we're going to do that, because then we're going to actually put the image transfer on, and then we're going to let it dry. So you have an option with the image transfer. You can let it dry for an hour. You can let it dry for half an hour. You can let it dry overnight. It really isn't going to change how much fun we're going to have taking it off, because we're going to have fun, because we're going to join the witness protection program, because we're actually going to wear the little things off the ends of our fingers. No one's ever going to have, we won't have no more fingerprints. So what we're going to do is we're going to get out our decoupage medium. I love this stuff. And we are going to get out another nasty old brush. I have this awesome brush. These are dirt cheap. These Eye of the Tiger brushes. My Dynasty ones, I just love these. They're like $3. They're awesome. Not a hair falls out. They wash like rags. I use them for decoupage. I use them for my chalky finish paints. I use them for varnish. This is the same one I've been using forever. I love it. Look at it. It's just awesome. Soft. So we're going to use that for the decoupage medium. And we're not going to be shy with our decoupage medium. We're going to paint it on. One thing with decoupage medium is that we don't want to, when we put our piece of paper down onto the surface, we want to make sure that we don't get the medium on the back of the paper. So we're going to do that in such a way that we'll be very, very careful that we don't do that, because if we get decoupage on the paper becomes very hard to get off. So we don't want to do that. So we're going to try very hard not to do that, and you know I'm going to do it because I always do it. But we're not going to worry because we have paint. So, decoupage medium. Good job. Do you know that they all come with a little lid? Just saying, take the lid off. You know, I could cut the video right here, but way more fun to show you that we all do really weird things. So there it is. Okay. Rub it in. Not going to hurt anything. Works like varnish. Works like glue. Okay, so now I'm going to put my big puddle on my palette. going to take my brush and we're going to just basically put it in this whole area. We want to cover the area, we want to cover very well, and we want to cover it very quickly. We want it quite thick. And I know, and it's okay to go where we're not going. I chose a matte, and this is one of the reasons that I choose the matte decoupage medium, is that it's not going to show on here if I leave my finish flat. If I use you know, the satin or the gloss, my surface is going to shine when I'm done. And don't be shy with it. It's okay. You want to have a good coat. Just don't have it like in puddles. You don't want puddles. But you also don't want to be dragging your brush through it either, so that you're trying your darndest to spread it. Get a good coat on there. You want to do this quite quickly too, because it does dry. And try to put it basically where you're pretty sure that your whole piece is going to go. I'm going to put in a little bit more. It's very humid, and my paint and everything I have dries a lot quicker here than I like it to. Okay, so get that on, nice and thick. So I take my my image, and you only get one shot at this, so you want to do it very, very quickly. I'm going to plop it down right about where you think it's going to be. Drop it down, and from the inside only, work it out. And avoid the corners, because you don't want to bring that medium back onto your paper. You're just going to use your fingertips and lightly bray it down as close to the edges as possible to start with. So we just want to get it in place. So now we can rub it down, 2 fingers, and just, you know, you're braying it basically. If you have a brayer, you can use a brayer. It just doesn't work so much on this because of the fact that it has got textured surface. And I'm not going to worry about these totally edges because I cut around the black anyway, and what's around the outside is paper, and the paper is just going to lift off. It's going to disintegrate, it's going to lift off, and all that's going to stay behind when all's said and done is just the black ink. So take 2 fingers, use your whole hand if you need to, and just get it as smooth as you possibly can. You're going to get a few wrinkles, and I'll show you. I'll bring this closer. You can actually see. Don't worry about those little wrinkles. They're not going to hurt you at all. You just want to watch for things like these bubbles, because you want to get these flattened right out. So fingers. Try hard not to get any of your image, your decoupage medium. And this is hit and miss. The fun part about this is that it doesn't need to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. So get it nice and smooth. Get all those bubbles out. Get it so you like it. Your fingers are starting to get warm. That's okay. So the trick with this whole thing, and the secret of it all, is that I use a textured background because if this comes off imperfect, which it usually does, it doesn't matter because of the texture. It adds to the whole, you know, aged, scary old look of it. Okay, so this is where we're going to just sit back, sit on our hands, go finish our coffee, have a cookie, whatever it is that you want to do. Go visit Facebook, go check out the Art Playdate Facebook page and see what everybody else is working on. A lot of fun things going on there. If you haven't joined the Facebook page for the Art Playdate, you do need to, and definitely share your projects on there, because wow, great ideas, great projects. Get to talk to everybody, get to talk to all the teachers. So there, we're going to sit back on this, and I'm going to let mine sit, probably check it a bit, you know, in about an hour. But I think I'm going to let mine sit for about 3 or 4 hours, and then we'll come back. See you in a bit. Okay, so it's been about an hour. So what I'm going to do is I've just done a little test here. So we're going to try it because it's been about an hour. If you use the decoupage image transfer medium, it's harder than the decoupage original. So decided to, because I used the actual photo transfer medium, I'm going to try it a little bit earlier. So what we're going to do is we're actually just going to wet this bottom corner. This is a good way to test it. Of course, don't do this yet if your surface is still, like if you're still sticky. If you did use the decoupage and this is all still sticky, then we're going to let it sit a little bit longer. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to wet this corner. So I'm taking my brush and I'm just going to soak it a little bit. And you can actually see up close, where is that? Come on, right in there. You can actually see the letters are sort of showing through a little bit. So we're just going to test that spot. And I'm just going to take my finger and rub it. And what you should see is the letter staying put. So that you can see the R stayed. A little bit of paper residue. We're not going to worry about that too much. So there, it depending 1 to 2 hours. I wouldn't let it sit much more than that. You don't need to. So we're going to actually just go with a bigger spot now. And we're going to wet the entire bottom. And I'm actually going to show you something that's really kind of funny. Where this spot right here, where it's white, that's where I got decoupage medium actually on the paper. So it's going to be a little harder to get that little spot off. But that, we're not going to worry about it. And just because I am still working, I didn't want to do the whole area just in case some of it isn't dry. We'll start, and we're just going to rub it with our fingers very lightly. Don't scrub at it. Sometimes you can use a rag. I prefer to use my fingers. And just keep rubbing. And you can see the letters are starting to come out. This is actually looking really good. But once you start to rub too hard, and this is what sets it apart from, whether it sits now or it sits, overnight or how much longer, is if I keep rubbing, I can actually pull a little bit of the black ink off. So because this has only been an hour, I'm actually going to actually let it sit now for another half an hour. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to do another piece. Just that the harder it is and the longer it sets, the less chance you have of pulling off some of the black. But when I'm not worried about those little bits that do come off. So we're just going to let it sit a little bit longer, so about half an hour. So and then we'll be back to test it some more.